Shake Appeal, Iggy and the Stooges, and I've kind of made it my mission to do a tutorial video for every track on this mighty album, and I think I'm nearly there. I've got a couple more to do after this video, so let's get started. Now this song I think is the penultimate track on 1973's Raw Power album. I don't think I really need to talk anymore about why this is such an essential record. It's one of the greatest rock and roll proto-punk albums of all time, enormously influential. And I mean, I do love the first two Stooges albums as well, but there's something about Raw Power. I don't know if it was just how old I was or the situation when I first came across it. I just really connected with it and it stayed with me ever since. So I'm going to try and keep this video fairly brief. I'll talk you through how to play the main riff to the tune. Also going to discuss some of the guitar solo ideas as well. So let's go. We're in the key of F and I'm going to be playing the main riff down here in the first position. And I've read a couple of people seem to be of the opinion that the original recording was in the key of E and then the pitch of the tape was altered in some way, but I found no evidence really to support that. And as far as I know, James Williamson plays it in the key of F when he plays it live, so that's how I'm going to be doing it. And that main riff goes like this. So it's starting off with some single notes down here in the first position, starting with this F root note, and then we've really just got this box of notes. So F, G, B flat, C, and then this E flat. So it's this kind of box of notes, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1 on the strings 4, 5 and 6. It's an 8-note rhythm. I suggest playing this one with all down strokes of the pick. Just dig in and play quite aggressively. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So a solid 8-note kind of rhythm. And then play that 3 times, I think, and then we've got a power chord. So it's a B flat power chord, a B flat 5. I'm playing that up here at the 6th fret, so it's fret 6 and 8. You actually got a choice. You could play that chord in the first position, keep the whole riff down in the first position and play this B flat with a 5th string root, but scrutinising some live footage, Williamson seems to be sliding up the neck when he plays that power chord, so again that's why I'm doing it that way. So that's our main riff. So pretty simple, but it's one of the things with the Raw Power album. Yes, it's kind of raw and it's primitive, but there is a sophistication and a subtlety there. I think that's why I keep coming back to the album. If it was just this kind of in-your-face, raw, primitive thing, maybe I wouldn't sort of feel the urge to keep listening to it. But yes, it has got those aspects to the album, but there's subtlety and you're quite sophisticated the way some of these riffs and songs are put together. I mean, this main riff, for example, you can kind of got this little, I suppose it's a pentatonic scale, but the obvious thing to do would be to go just go up an F minor pentatonic scale. But it's not doing that. It's got the G in there as well, which to my ear just makes it a little bit more interesting than just being a kind of bog standard pentatonic riff. So that's our main riff, fairly straightforward to play. It's played quite fast, so you're going to want to stay fairly relaxed if you're going to pick that with all downstrokes up to tempo. So I find just really relaxing in my picking hand helps with that. And I suppose if you wanted to, you could thicken up that first note by playing a power chord or maybe playing a bar chord as well. I mean, listening to the original recording, it sounds like the main guitar is just playing single notes, but it could be there are some other overdubs or layers of guitar where there's some chords going on, so perhaps some more power chord or bar chord parts. But so up to you how you do that, but I think I prefer just to play it with the single notes here and then go to the power chord up here at the 6th fret. So that's our main riff. That's really just repeated for the verse of the song. But another kind of quite cool subtlety is the number of repeats of that riff varies. I mean, when you first hear it, we're playing that single note part 3 times. So that's the basic iteration of this riff, but then the number of repeats on that single note bit is cut, so it's cut to twice, and then it goes down to 1 repeat. So it really does make the song sound more interesting. It's very natural when you listen to the song. You hardly notice it, but it fits in really well with the vocal phrasing. So listen out for that. And it's really the vocals which are the cue as to when you repeat the riff and when you don't repeat it. But it's a really cool aspect of this song, I think. What else then? We've got this secondary riff, which is the one that goes like this. Here we're at the 6th fret on the low E string, B flat, and I'm playing all single notes. I'm just going to shout out the fret numbers here. So we've got 6, 8, 9, 8, 8, 10. And then we're playing the same riff, but starting at the 4th fret. So exactly the same intervals and finger pattern here. It's 4, 6, 7, 6, going up to 8. So if I put those bits together, we've got and then we're going back to the main riff of the tune. And I suppose what's going on here is we're outlining a chord progression, really. The chord progression is, so it's kind of a B flat going up to a C, A flat and B flat, and the riff is following those chords. And I can kind of detect chords happening underneath that single note riff. If you listen closely, you've got kind of different layers of guitar happening, but that's the basic riff. And then we've got the guitar solo, classic James Williamson stuff. It's kind of wild, a little bit all over the place. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly what's going on. So I'm not going to attempt to take you through this note for note, but I will show you the basic ideas that he's playing, and then you can maybe come up with your own kind of solo ideas based on what he's doing. So the first licks of the solo are played down in the first position, and we've got that kind of idea. So classic rock and roll kind of Chuck Berry language here. So double stops at the 1st fret on the B and G strings, and coming to this F note here, 3rd fret on the D, and then we're bending at the 3rd fret on the B and G strings. So it's a kind of double stop with a bend thrown in. And after that, down to the 1st fret and then back to our root note. So it's a classic rock and roll lick, really. And then he's just briefly coming up to this double stop shape here. So this is kind of F minor pentatonic. We've got 5 on the G and 4 on the B. And And Williamson's then working his way up the neck, and it sounds to me like the next bit of the solo is played in this kind of zone. So that kind of idea. I'm thinking out of an F bar chord shape here. We've got the 10th fret on the D, G and B, kind of a triad shape. And then this little double stop shape. This is again classic rock and roll language. So 9 on the B and 8 on the high E. Giving that a little bit of a bend. And throwing in this F note here at 10 on the G. Kind of the messier and the wilder the better where this stuff is concerned. You don't need to be too precise with any of this stuff. And then the final little licks of the solo are played up in the 13th position. It's really very similar to the way the solo opened, but played an octave higher. So I'm hearing something like this. So it's double stops on the B and the G once again. So 15th fret, little bend and release, and then coming down to the 13th fret and just repeating that idea. So that's the solo, really 3 or 4 different ideas that you can play around with, can add to your own vocabulary. So just play with a bit of attitude, dig in, a little bit of aggression, and you're going to have something that sounds cool. And that's really it. I think you go back to the main riff for the rest of the song. I don't think you need to overthink or over-analyse this one. We just got some great riffs. It's a great song and a really exciting recording. Let's talk gear then. And James Williamson used a Les Paul to record this album. I think he used a Les Paul exclusively. I mean, there are some acoustic guitar tracks where he obviously didn't use a Les Paul, but I think all of the electric tracks are going to be Les Paul. And I read that the main amp in the studio was a Vox AC30, and I'm not sure if any pedals were involved. Actually, it could just all be a cranked AC30, but some of the guitar tracks do sound quite fuzzy, so maybe there was a fuzz pedal involved as well. I'm not exactly sure. If any of you know the precise details on that, then I'd be interested to find out. I'm using my Les Paul, which is a 59 reissue Les Paul R9, and I'm just going through my Fender Princeton. That's just the amp which I've sort of got out and set up behind me. I'm running the amp clean, and then for the overdrive sound I'm using my Rat distortion, kind of my favourite distortion for this kind of thing. It's just got a nice thick distortion, but it's got a bit of an edge to it. It does sound a little bit fuzzy. It never gets too smooth. It doesn't sound like a kind of modern metal kind of distortion. I've nothing against those kind of guitar sounds, but for this kind of Stooges stuff you want something that's a little bit nastier sounding. So the Les Paul into the Princeton just sounds like this. And if I switch the Rat on, so there we go. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'm going to try and put together a little playlist on YouTube of all of the other Raw Power tutorials. So if you fancy having a go at 1 or 2 of the other tracks from the album, you can easily find them. If you would like tab for this song, you can find that on my Patreon page. Thanks for watching. See you next time.